So today we will be talking about the Red Scare. I am Audrey C. So the rundown of the Red Scare was it was mainly the US and the Soviet Union involved, and it was basically just paranoia over the threat that was posed by communists in the US around the time of the Cold War. It happened between 1917 and 1920, and then kind of had a relapse around 1947 and 1957, which was also where McCarthyism comes into play. It was located pretty much just within the US, specifically the government, but it found its way into American citizens' everyday lives. And it was mainly just because of actions of the Soviet Union as well as McCarthy. During this time period, there were millions of things happening around the world. Some of these things helped to increase the fear of communist infiltration. In 1949, the Soviet Union successfully tested a nuclear bomb, which started the arms race, and then also invaded China, which increased the fear that the US was next. A year later, the Korean War was started, and the US decided to get involved through their military. All of these conflicts played a role in convincing US citizens that communism was taking over because of the communist backed forces and the access to technology that they had. The Red Scare all kind of started with just paranoia. It was just people getting it in their head that they needed to be afraid about something, but it kind of got confirmed because of Soviet spies that had been compromised within US security. J. Hoover, who was an FBI director, was a big anti-communist and had been essential in the first Red Scare. He continued to work in the second one to lead the FBI to heavily investigate possible communists. They collected files on suspects and provided evidence in high-profile cases pertaining to suspected communists, such as the Rosenbergs. They used technology such as wiretaps, surveillance, and infiltration to gain their information. In 1947, loyalty boards were mandated by the current president, who was Truman. These loyalty boards were installed to analyze the loyalty of federal employees to the government. They were put in every agency to determine if there was enough evidence to warrant a full investigation about these people. They had more than 5 million federal employees investigated, as well as 700 dismissed. This also caused thousands of people to resign. The boards were criticized for the overly broad criteria, for being a communist sympathizer, and did not help to calm suspicions, only confirmed that anybody could be a communist and that there were people to worry about in America. McCarthyism was a period during this time where efforts were made to expose communist infiltration within the government. It was all headed up by Senator Joseph McCarthy, who was a senator of Wisconsin. In 1954, McCarthyism came to its peak with the McCarthy hearings. It lasted about 36 days. It was a series of televised trials where McCarthy accused individuals from Fort Monmouth of communist infiltration. They were tipped off by an army dentist who refused to participate in the loyalty screenings. These hearings eventually led to McCarthy's downfall, which we will talk about in the later videos. Or, not the later videos, upcoming slides. In 1938, the House of Un-American Activities was created to investigate alleged disloyalty within private citizens, public employees, and organizations who had been previously suspected of having communist ties. They called citizens to the stand to intimidate them into giving them information about what political beliefs they participated in, as well as to provide names of other people who were also participating in the same activities. They were getting information about well-known citizens. This caused more than 2,000 government employees to lose their jobs as a result. After attempting to accuse the armed forces, as we said earlier, McCarthy was exposed for being intimidating to witnesses and responding with evasive responses when questioned in hearings that were broadcasted to the public. Once the hearings were over, McCarthy had lost all power, and the U.S. Senate voted to condemn him for conduct unbecoming of a senator, which is basically just a censure. This really heavily impacted work life, the whole Red Scare in general. People who refused to cooperate would lose their jobs and then be blacklisted. They paid special attention to the motion picture industry as well, which was believed to harbor lots of communists. They never spoke out against trials and frequently blacklisted anyone in the industry because of being a communist, so they had to be extra careful. They also believed that the federal government was also infiltrated with communists, so the U.S. citizens attacked several high-ranking officials, including Whittaker Chambers. One of the most infamous cases of this was in August of 1948 when a self-confessed former member of the American Communist Party, Whittaker Chambers, appeared before the committee. In his testimony, he accused Alger Hiss, a former high-ranking State Department official, of serving as a Soviet Union spy. Based on these allegations and evidence provided by Chambers, Hiss was found guilty of perjury and served 44 months in prison and spent the rest of his life proclaiming his innocence and decrying his wrongful prosecution. Not only did this affect the work life of American citizens, but also the home life. They were constantly worried that communists lived among them and thought it was a threat to the stability of their government and just their country in general. Thousands of alleged communist sympathizers saw their lives disrupted, blacklisted from their jobs, alienated from friends and family, and attacked by law enforcement. Persecution of the gay community also reached new heights as an openly gay man was found to be a Soviet spy. A use of communication during this time was through propaganda. It was used to demonize communism and to scare people into believing that the Red Scare was real. Here are some examples. There are our references. Thank you.